So, what's leading you? Is it something external or is it something internal? Think about that for a second. Because if it's coming from outside, then you're not in control. You've lost control because something else is leading you. When you can lead yourself using your mind, using your thoughts, using your energy, using your vision, using, not the sight, the vision, the living in the future, right? That one thing that is driving you, leading you, that informs your identity, to who you are as a person. When that's leading you, that's where you have the joy of life. That's where you maintain control. Yeah. And who wants to be out of control? Is there any one of you that would like to be genuinely out of control? You tell me.
And so often we feel this way.
Yeah.
So often we feel this way and we can't pinpoint why.
And just today, I had so many pieces that I'm pulling together, trying to get everything done this week. So I had my entire year planned. And I felt so frustrated that I got a text message that required my attention. And then somebody said, call me. And I pondered for a minute, wow, should I call this person? And it kept nagging at me. And that was external, right?
Yes.
And I was letting that control me. I was letting that input, those requests for my attention, they were in control for a good portion of the morning today.
So this is quite a common thing, isn't it? Even when you're as clear as you and I have worked to be over the years, because my day was the exact same thing. And I couldn't even identify what was going on. I couldn't identify. Same thing. People pulling at me from all different directions with good intentions. People, things in response to things I'm putting out there in life. That I want to be of use and of value to people. That's right. And everything. I absolutely literally closed up today, Michael. I ended up going into the corner of the living room and taking 2 different naps because I was so lost and overwhelmed. So that's how easy it is even to lose control of that when you do know. I've spent the same time and energy as you have figuring out what I want this next year to be like, what my objectives are, what the experience I want to have of this year. And even despite that, here we are. What is it? The 4th of January.
Yeah.
And the 4th of January just locked up tight and everything else coming at me and going, what just happened? And so it's interesting that this is the topic today.
Yeah. And so what there are a number of things that we're going to touch on today, but when you think about the leadership center, the one that you create for yourself, and that entire framework, and to realize that people can jab at it and poke holes in it just by asking you, hey, could you give me a call?
Yes.
Or we need
I need this information. I really need this information. I can't move forward.
Right. Or we need to review this letter before we send it off, or something that derails.
Yes.
It takes you away from that center of leadership, your internal leadership center. Wow. It is so fragile.
Very. And I would say also the other thing that happened was I played really hard last weekend and I'm physically run down. And, so I know we've talked about sharpening the saw, Stephen Covey, and how easy it is to just keep running and running. And then you hit a wall so hard. And today was, so what did I have today? What was my value to the world? What was the value to my objectives? Pretty close to a goose egg because of those things. And so if you don't sharpen the saw, which is in Stephen Covey terms, always taking care of those things that allow you to continue, the rest, the food, the nutrition, self-care in all the different ways.
And I love the formula that he he references, or he may have even created it, with his production over production capacity. And so if you actually don't take care of your production capacity by
Yes.
renewal, then you have no opportunity to produce anything, because
yes, and that's exactly where it was today. Exactly where it was today.
Yeah.
Very illuminating. So this is instructive as well, is that you can have all of these things in place and still fall down.
Yes.
Still hit walls, still hit struggles and challenges. And so we talk about this every week. You know, you and I are talking about these subjects as if we've got them all nailed, and we don't, because this is a constant process of refreshing your mind, your memory, your commitment to doing these things, and still you'll fall down, still you'll get it wrong, still other priorities will trump you know, what you're doing in any given day. You know, so play was a big one for the weekend. It's such an important thing to me, adventuring in that. And then you know, it comes to whatever day we're on, Wednesday, and you go splat.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, you know, so then is there an element of also being kind to yourself when you do get out of balance, because it's going to happen. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, and I love the term that we use, loving the struggle.
Yes. Yeah, because it is a grappling, isn't it?
Yeah, and just to even what we're doing right now, just reflecting on the non-productive day, relatively speaking, at least, that we've had, but we're actually talking about it. We're actually saying today was not a very productive day for us, and we're recognizing it for what it is, as a struggle. Right? I should have turned off my phone, maybe turned off the WhatsApp and the text messaging. And if I really wanted to devote my time, which was something so important, I have an opportunity coming up, and there's an organization that wants to have certified trainers for the Smarter Vision. And I needed to write up some information about the protocol that we'll use. And I got 2 paragraphs done, and that was about it.
Right. Michael, same here. It was like, you know, why can't you at times grab a hold of? I kept saying to myself, hey, there's a whole list sitting here. This is the whole list of things that, and it's just overwhelming to look at it. Every one that I went to take and take a bite of was, oh my gosh, that's such a deep dive. How am I going to do that? So I kept trying to move on to the next one. No, that's too much. No, that's too much. That's too much. And it's like, what would have been the strategy, you know, to take one thing off of it and put the whole rest of the list aside and say, if you get one thing done today, that's valuable? Or was it, you know, I at some point made the conclusion of, I just need to rest my brain. I'm at that point where it's just, I've pushed and pushed way too far. And it wasn't like it, you know, we also do this to ourselves too. We beat ourselves up like we didn't get anything done. I can bet you, if you and I sat here and decided to do celebrations, we'd both go, well, oh yeah, I did do this and I did do that and I did get this accomplished, right? Because I do know that there are a couple of things that were significant that I got done today, but it felt like I got nothing done. And so maybe it's 2 things: that celebrating the things that you do accomplish on rough days like this, and knowing the difference of when it is time to sharpen that saw, when it was time for me that I was just beating my head against a wall and not making any headway, and that the frustration was actually mounting so that it was going to just prolong the pain
so
of it.
The silver lining, right? The silver lining in the clouds. So technically speaking, we are looking at the clouds right now, but you're talking about, there is a silver lining. There has to be a silver lining. Did we make a difference in someone's life in spite of the distraction? Right? Did we have an opportunity to move another agenda along other than the one that we intended today?
Any part of the needle on any measure is steps in the right direction, right? And there's going to be days like this. There's going to be, and we're so hard on ourselves that it shouldn't be like this. Well, Michael, after all, we know where we're going. We know what we want to be doing, each of us. We have a clear mission, vision, values. We've got all of those things. I know how to itty bitty baby step my way into something. I couldn't even do that today.
That is so crazy. And so we're striving, we're struggling, and you know what? It's a part of the becoming.
Yes.
And I just
Yes.
want our audience to recognize that it's okay to fail. It's okay to have a bad day, a distracted day, an unproductive day.
And to grapple with it.
And to struggle and grapple and fight and feel defeated even.
Yes.
It's
Because
okay.
it is part of the journey. It is part of it. So that you know when tomorrow is a good day, that you say, hey, those days like yesterday are going to happen. I am going to pick myself up. I'm going to get the sleep I need. I'm going to drink plenty of water. I'm going to get the rest I need. I'm going to ease up on what I'm eating.
Mhm.
I'm going to do whatever I need to do to nurture myself so I come back in better form tomorrow than I did today, and have clarity about what I need to get done. And even in that, we're limited. There is only so much we can get done in a day. So is it that you then pare back your expectations of yourself
Well,
in that day?
in that
I
day,
don't mean permanently. I
in
mean,
that day, yeah. In that
yes,
day,
the
for that
overwhelm
month.
today just stopped me in my tracks. Whereas if I would have said, hey, what if you just got this one thing done? Maybe you would have gotten on the ladder, of some momentum, maybe,
Mhm.
and you would have at least felt successful, so that it's not also that downward spiral of kicking yourself, which you shouldn't do, but there's a tendency when you're down, you're worn down and not making that headway. There is a tendency to kick yourself, even though it's not productive or helpful either, but it's the state you're in, right? State is very important. Anthony Robbins talks about state all the time.
Yeah. And so I wanna throw a 180 in here. All right.
Okay.
I love to do these one,
Me too.
right? Because we're talking about the fact that we had a difficult, distracted day and we weren't as productive as we wanted. And we've already said that it is the art of the becoming. Well, key point, becoming the what. We know what that is because we have an internal leadership center already clearly defined with values, with vision, with mission and identity, right? That's already there. Well, guess what? If we didn't have that leadership center, we wouldn't even have a struggle.
Now that's interesting. Can you say more about that?
So think about it. If you didn't have these ambitious goals for yourself, there would be no struggle.
There would be no measure to
There would-
know that you were either staying in place, falling backwards, or moving ahead, or moving ahead at a pace that wasn't commensurate with what you were intending.
Right. You would just float through the day and it would be, oh, tomorrow's here. Oh,
Yeah.
the next day is here.
My day took a detour.
Oh yeah, no big deal.
Yeah.
But when you have a clear vision, a clear mission, and a path that you're following, and then you miss it, and you get derailed for a moment, you
Curious.
feel it hard.
Yes, curious, Michael. That's very curious.
That's a 180 right there, right?
Yes, that you have something worthwhile that you're going after, and that's how you can know that you are, according to your own lights, whatever that is that's meaningful for you.
Whatever it is.
Right. And that that what that is, and then you've got something to measure against to know whether you are or aren't making that headway towards it, hitting those deadlines, hitting those outcomes that step you through to get to the end. To get to the end, when you're off track.
Yeah.
Curious.
And I love in the mastermind concept that this is our general overarching theme right now for all these few sessions that we've had. Yeah, and when we think about this leadership center, it's like an umbrella over everything else. And I love the statement that we have in our framework that says it renews us, it refreshes us, particularly if we recommit to it. And so there is a gap there that sometimes needs to be filled. We're going to these. But then we pick up, isn't that beautiful?
Yes, that is beautiful. There's the doubling down. It's like tomorrow, I didn't get it today, but I will get it tomorrow. And even that's a habit that I don't imagine you and I even recognize, because there's no question in my mind that tomorrow I'm coming back at it with ferocity.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is in other things, It didn't work, it fell apart, and it stays falling apart. But
Right.
but in the places where you've got that crystal clear and all the pieces are in alignment, all of them, the vision, the values, the goals, and the deep meaning for you, there's no kind of quitting. Okay, so here's a question for you for exploring things.
Yes.
What is the difference between the ones that fall apart and stay falling apart and the ones that aren't?
Great.
The ones that every day you go back at.
So the ones that fall apart, in my case, and I think this is, we're just thinking it through quickly here. In my case, the ones that fall apart are the ones that are not part of our mission, not part of the vision, because those that are part of the vision, you're really focused on them. Those things are the things that we are recommitting to when we fall down. And so if they're not part of the mission, I mean, I can think of a couple of things right now that, okay, so I didn't get to go to the ball game. All right. Yeah, I was looking forward to being, a little social event and so on, but it's okay because it's not.
So the social thing is not as important to you.
Not quite as important to me.
And for me, it's the health thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can theoretically see how they're connected, right? I
Yep.
can't go do the adventures I want to do if health deteriorates past a certain point.
Right.
Too much weight or too little aerobic capacity or whatever, muscles and endurance or strength, then the vision falls apart. So I can theoretically see I can see the connection. Yeah, it's so obvious. But what's missing? What's missing in making the deep connection between those two things? Because this is where it falls apart for not only you, me, everybody that would be listening to us. There's some piece of the puzzle that's missing for the pieces that don't get recommitted to. So I make my green smoothie, I don't, and 5 days go by. I have my lemon water in the morning to detoxify my, blood, blah, blah, all that stuff for 2 days, and it falls apart, and then my lemons go bad in the refrigerator over and over. And it's not like I don't start this over and over again. I do. Yeah. And then it falls apart, and then it disappears again. And I'm guessing, I've got a sense it's more than just the habits, Michael.
It's more than just the habits. I would agree with that. It's more than just the habits, but I think
it's an important part of it, because the habits, challenging to establish. We've talked about habits and how to establish them, but there's something more important than that.
And what are you? Do you have an answer, or you?
I'm not sure that I do. I've got a vague idea. I think it's maybe twofold as I'm thinking about it. Is that you haven't tied it to the objective in that deep emotional, visual, visceral, all the kinesthetic, all those kind of things way. I think it's the habits on one hand, but then there's this deep connection to it. And I think there's a third little sneaky thing in here. Then it ties into identity. I think there's another sneaky thing in here.
Following my thought. Yeah.
Yes, is that there's some part of us that's resistant to it. Yeah. And that's immediately when I thought of identity, because, okay, so the food thing, well, I know instinctively, intuitively that to continue doing the things I'm wanting to do into an age that I want to do them at, I'm 56 years old. I want to keep riding a dirt bike and taking endurance type trips. You have to have a measure of really solid grounding in health, a foundation of health. Like I said, endurance, muscle strength, all those kind of things, aerobic capacity, all those kind of things. But there's also a piece of me that has an identity. I love this call because you and I are being pretty transparent on it. There's also an identity, a bit of being a foodie. I love a good meal. I love a good recipe. I love pouring a glass of wine while we're cooking up a brilliant, beautiful meal. And there's this and it's also part of the experience when I travel is the different foods, then the people, the atmosphere, all those kind of things. That's part of the identity. And I have not been able to reconcile those two things. And so the one that is more romantic,
Yes.
compelling,
Yes.
juicy,
Yes.
delightful is the one that always wins out. My daughter's here. I haven't seen her for 3 years because of the thing that you're not allowed to say, COVID. And she loves to cook as much as I do, and I'm looking forward to 4 days of nothing but cooking, pouring a glass of wine, tasting the bourbon that they brought, all these kind of things that are the antithesis of that other objective.
Yeah. So it's a struggle, right? And we're talking about the part of this becoming. It would not even be a part of the topic, Renee, this evening, if you didn't have something else in mind for yourself.
Yes.
Right?
If it was only that, I would continue on my merry way.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Or another glass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you'd be like a free for all, right? Whatever is in front of me, I will consume.
Yes, and delightfully so. Yes.
So the struggle is part of your becoming. And one of the things that I know Andrew Huberman really talks about in a very deep way, and we'll simplify it here, is to take that struggle and celebrate the struggle in the recognition of the fact that you have a goal that's way higher.
Worthy.
Yes.
Worthy of the struggle.
Worthy of the struggle. So when you get, so you make a success, you stop and you celebrate that tiny success. Yeah, right. And next time you fall, you may fall again, very likely, but then you come back around and you recommit, right? And you have a measure of success, and then you celebrate that, but you also celebrate the struggle that you had. He says, look, I'm a survivor. I'm going to get through the struggle, regardless of how difficult and how challenging it is, because I have a big an image of myself as a very fit and super healthy person who can endure these rides and endure adverse circumstances in the forest or in the paths where I go through the rivers and all the many different places that I'll be riding through.
Yes.
And what it does, one of my favorite words, it allows the dopamine trigger, the spigot, to get turned on, right?
Yes.
And so when we celebrate, but we have to recognize, we're not celebrating the fall, but we're celebrating the struggle to something better.
Yeah, so that you're succeeding at the grappling.
Yes.
You're succeeding at wrangling with this thing because there's something larger in mind.
That's right.
So I think there's a couple of things here to summarize that up is the having, so the smarter vision process that you've created does that. It walks you very sensorily, is that the word? All your senses through experiencing being that person. So there's identity in here. There's very much identity in here. So it's identity, it's creating habits, it's celebrating the struggle, it probably, and the successes, right? But it was more that you celebrated the struggle, correct?
Yeah.
Than even the successes.
Yeah.
In that I had the green smoothie this morning.
Yeah.
It's that I came out here, because there's mornings that happens, Michael. I come out here and it's like, that's the thing I dump all my goodies into, and it takes a few minutes.
Yeah.
And there's mornings I just don't want to. I just want to get on with my quinoa. Let's just eat my breakfast. And there's mornings where it's like, get out all the little things and dump all the little things in there so that you have this. And it is a struggle. So that's the moment I should be saying to myself, look at you go, girl. You're doing it. Yeah. You pulled out all the different little goodies that you put into your green smoothie. This is going to nourish your body for the morning. You grappled with it. You didn't relent. You didn't give in to the urge to just move on past and you go, that's not a big challenge, but it moments in your day, the smallest things can be a big challenge to you that stand in the way of your goals, because this isn't habit. This isn't your normal. This gets challenged when I travel, all those kind of things, but to celebrate the success. Yes. So it's those things. It's tying it to your bigger vision. It's the creating habits, and we've talked about creating habits in other videos, and piecing together identity and then celebrating the struggle.
Yes.
Does that pretty much summarize it?
Absolutely. And I would throw another word in that mix, and that would be, as we look at what we're going for, there is a purpose that drives us too. All right. So we know this is the thing we want to do, but it's not just that we want to do it. We have a reason why. Why are we doing it? We want to impact lives. We want to help people. I mean, in your case, Renee,
Yes.
the greatest joy that you would have, even more so than taking the motorcycle ride, would be to know that you had 50 ladies with you who had a breakthrough
Yes.
and had the freedom and the capacity to ride and celebrate and enjoy the moments in
Yes.
nature and
Yes.
the
And
little and
grow
grow,
themselves and see what
grow
they're
themselves.
capable of.
That would bring you more you would even sleep deeper. Right, just from knowing that that's existing and that you would impact more lives that way.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so there's something else. So if we have a higher purpose for the thing that we want, then that helps to build the capacity, helps us to celebrate the struggle because we know we're on our way.
Yes. And then, I would throw in one more, the Joe Dispenza
Oh yeah,
aspect of things, where the neuroplasticity and it takes time. So the celebrating the struggle, celebrating the successes as you're creating that habit, and you're adding new neural networks that say, I am this person, I'm doing the behaviors that's consistent with being this person.
Mm-hmm.
And also pruning off the, hey, I'm hungry, where's the chocolate chip cookies? It's that and you're like, in that case, I have a semi habit of that. I go get hummus and red peppers, I cut up some red pepper, and that's my
Yeah.
afternoon snack, instead of rooting around for something that's sweet and it's satisfying and it hits that. And so every time I do that, you're pruning off the neural networks for, I should go get a cookie, and you're adding the neural network of, this is now the habit. And the great thing about habits, of course, is once you've got it locked in, it's like your bad habits. It
Yeah.
runs on autopilot. So
Yep.
now it's running in your favor. So
Right.
this is something we also have to be cognizant of keeping at this, chipping away at this. It's in CrossFit, they have a term, it's called a chipper, and it's brutal, and it's just endless reps of one thing after another. And it's a chipper. Your brain just locks in the next rep, the next rep, the next rep. We might want to think about it in terms of that. You're chipping away at this to create that habit, to shed the old habit, to keep moving in the direction of that identity, no matter how messy you do it, because you're doing it. And you're getting better at it with every rep that you exercise on that front. Interesting.
This is
Very curious.
very yeah. And just so everybody knows, this is sort of how we run our mastermind.
Yes.
Yeah, right? It's just kind of that exploration of ideas and concepts, principles that we've learned and that we apply, questions that we ask when we have a struggle.
Running up against an obstacle. Yes.
Running up an obstacle, we bring it out. We're very transparent with that. And we're being transparent with you right now, those of you who are watching and listening here.
Yes.
And we have a statement here, Renee. I just want to be sure we cover this one before we get done here. It says, everything we do is a sharpening or a dulling of the saw. And I see your name by that. That's going to put you on the spot, because the sharpening of the saw is such an important part of being whole, of being equipped, and having the resources, the energy resources to carry through. And many times, as we've already alluded to a few minutes ago, we fall sometimes because we were tired, because we were exhausted.
And we pushed it right up against the limit.
Right,
yes.
The limit. And so to be sharp and to be prepared and to be ready and to be sufficiently energized and capacitated, is that the right word?
We'll call it, yeah.
Have the capacity too,
yes.
right? To be able to have all of that in place is very helpful to being able to stay on track.
Yes. Yes. It's the first thing we want to ditch.
Yes.
It's the very first things we want to ditch. You want to just keep applying energy to it. Whatever the it is, whatever tasks are in front of you, whatever the goals and objectives are, and to keep pushing. I just had a conversation, my daughter, having just gotten here about an hour ago from England, and her husband. And this was the conversation we were exactly having. They pushed and pushed and pushed. And I was asking, what do you want to do while you're here? Nothing. We just want quiet and to relax, because they had pushed themselves right up against the limit. And the lovely thing is, and this comes from you, Michael, I wanted to tell you this.
Yes.
You talked to them years ago, and every year the two of them sit down and they figure out what their year's objectives are. And then they also give themselves a word that they're going to live by. And this year it was something like self-respect, of the sense of, before deciding something, to see if it aligns with what they're trying to accomplish, if it's taking their sharpening the saw needs into account, because they saw, and this is also illustrative, that out of the pain and the struggle that they've had in the last year, it forced them to be aware of this, that they had pushed way too far. Whereas if you don't almost break, sometimes you can discount it and you keep going in the same bad way. They had a lot of pain, so they analyzed what they were doing. And so the coming year's word for them is sort of restorative. It's for them to always look to see if it supports them, who they are, what their goals are, and also their well-being.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
Isn't it incredible?
That's so beautiful. So beautiful.
And so, I want to acknowledge you had that influence on them years ago.
Wow.
I think probably 10 years ago now. Probably 10 years ago now. She was in college.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember those conversations.
Yes.
Get time zones and coordinate those.
Yes, exactly. And so again, we never know what influence we'll have on others. And so here, my daughter and her now husband, 10 years later, still do this every single year for themselves and live by it.
Wow.
Figuring out what they want for their year, what's most important to them, what's guiding them, and having a word in front of them that guides them overall through their year.
So this is a great example of everything we do is either sharpening or dulling the saw.
Yes.
And maybe for those of who are not familiar, if you're working at a lumber yard, and you're actually chopping trees down and you're sawing and hewing the lumber out of the trunk of the tree, you've got to stop to sharpen the saw.
Yes. If you don't, you get less and less and less productive with every single, right?
Yeah.
Every single pass of the saw, it's getting harder and harder and more inefficient.
Yeah. And so many of us, we keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And if we never stop to relax, to rejuvenate,
yes,
it's going to be destruction, because our production capacity is going to diminish, and then our ability to produce is going to be pretty much nil after a while.
Nil. That's the word I was thinking too. Nil.
Yeah.
Nothing. Yes.
Nothing.
And it's very painful when you have a bigger vision for yourself and your life.
So even as we are working, even as we are pushing hard to get that thing done and the next thing done, we're also contemplating the relaxation that we will enjoy, because even that brings about an idea of, I will have a break here. I am going to take this half hour, or I'm going to take these 20 minutes and I'm going to do something different. I'm going to actually, just sit down and relax and have a nice conversation, a cup of tea or whatever. And you're going to do that because that's rejuvenating. You're going to get some proper rest, proper sleep.
And to be mindful of it. And to be mindful that it is something that actually rejuvenates rather than escapism. Because I think that's a real risk is that you escape out of, which, and then you can keep the bad habits going that you're doing, and you don't actually sharpen that saw.
Right.
You don't actually, I've noticed that in myself as well. There's some things that are just escaping, that I'm exhausted and I've pushed too hard. And then there's other things where it actually fills me back up again, where I can feel that swelling up in me again of energy and enthusiasm and purpose again. Yeah. And we have to be mindful of that. It's easy to fall into I'm just going to, go binge watch something or watch things that are not good for your mind. Actually, and that's curious, because today what sort of got me a little bit back on track was I went and listened to, I forget what the guy's name is, but he has just very inspired people talking about really, interesting, fascinating things on his show, the Greatness, School of Greatness. Well, I can't remember the guy's name, the School of Greatness. Anyway, he's a football player. And it was just, I'd listened for probably 10 minutes and all of a sudden the wheels are turning in a beautiful way of the things that matter to me again, so that you can find places that will re-energize you, re-inspire you, as opposed to other things that I know. If I watch Yellowstone, I get kind of depressed. That's the only show I watch, and it's like it's very gritty and violent, and it's amazing to me. I can see the difference between what it has, the impact it has on my demeanor.
Yeah.
I watched watch Yellowstone, and I'm very, all of a sudden the world seems dark and dangerous and violent and all that kind of things, and then I go and listen to whatever his name is, the School of Greatness guy, and it's like, the world's full of possibility. I can get after this again, and so fill your mind, water the plant, fertilize the plant, those seeds that are your dreams.
And so we need to add one more component to this. We've talked about purpose, identity, and the leadership center. I think community and the environment.
Yes.
Which is what you're introducing here, is the idea. And so I just had a wonderful conversation with family just this past weekend, and they were saying that all three kids now are now just turning adults, between 21 and 19, and they consistently played Mozart for them.
Wow.
before they were born, and in their infant years, and then exposed them additionally to many different types of music. They introduced them to complex ideas even when they were very young, and they were all three of them were so well behaved that the mother could take them, all three of them, to workshops and to because they would just sit there quietly and listen, because they had background already built in their neural circuitry to be able to absorb and understand and find those things interesting, rather than needing to play a video game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
All right. And so the thing I wanted to say about that is that we too can program, even if we have to go back and reverse some of those bad habits and bad thoughts. But when we create the environment that facilitates the proper kind of thinking, such as listening to the correct
material. Yes.
The School of Greatness, or Andrew Huberman, or Joe Dispenza, or so when we're going down into the dumps and we're being distracted, we can create a different environment for ourselves by getting the right kind of input.
Yes.
Is a huge item for us to keep reminding our audience of, and reminding ourselves of, really, that's so important. So
this is a beautiful thing that we do, Michael. This is, when you said about the mastermind, this is what we do. We parse things apart. We don't just skip over them. You and I didn't know when we started this conversation that we both had a bumpy day.
No.
And we didn't know why, and we didn't know how to get back on track. And here, this is, so anybody that's listening, the value of having a mastermind group, having someone that you can communicate these things with, so that you can actually sort through them, instead of just continuing to repeat the same behavior that leads to the same outcomes of having another bad day and another bad day. The next time I have a bad day, I will be able to step back a little bit, remember this conversation, and go, okay, what do I have at my disposal, including the people like Michael, to reach out to go, now what was it again? What is it that we know that we can do to get back on track when we have had a tough day? You've got something to lean back on, because you actually took the time to figure out where it went wrong. Because it doesn't always go right. When you're moving into a new identity, a new life, that's what comes from this. You end up having a different life experience as you're moving into that. You don't know what that is. You haven't done it yet. So it is going to be messy. It is going to be bumpy. There's going to be things that you run into. Having people on your side, like Michael and I do for one another, allows you to have access to someone else's mind, to generate ideas together, to continue moving.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. We've done this for 16 years.
And we are so many miles ahead compared to
where we started.
Yeah, and compared to where we would have been without this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both without purpose, you with diabetes, me clueless.
Yeah.
And now we're both have purpose and are moving forward with. I just had a friend of mine today list off to me. We've known each other for 5-6 years. My friend Scott Wahab, and because I was having a tough day, so I reached out to him, and I got a message in that told me all the things I had accomplished in the 5 years that he's known me. And I couldn't help. I'm looking at my phone and I'm going, how come I couldn't see that? He saw this in me. He could list off those things for me. And it was like, wow, you did do all of those things. Ease up, girl. Because you are becoming this new person, and it is from time to time really rocky. Yes. But it's so worth it.
It's so worth it. So I've just got one more sentence here that I think maybe we should pull right out of the mastermind framework, which ties into our discussion today. And I like this part. When we have this clear identity and maybe purpose and values and vision all clear, it becomes our leadership center. It's the thing that drives us, that guides us, that helps us to find those environments, those cassette tapes or those videos, the YouTube channel that will inspire us to do better than we are about to do. All right. And when we don't have it clarified extremely well, we don't function very well according to our goals. We're not efficient. We're not effective in terms of achieving the becoming that we are going for. And so to be clear on the identity and to be clear on our purpose, clear on our vision, clear on the values that are the foundation of all of that. And so why are we doing this?
Yes.
If we are clear on that, that becomes our own internal, intrinsic leadership center that will guide us along the path that we want.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Absolutely beautiful. This was so lovely. And such a big help.
Yeah, it got me fired up once again. I think
absolutely.
I'll go till midnight tonight without
yeah, right. In. It's like I'm just sorry you showed up, girl. I got things to do tonight.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Yes, and next week we're going to do something curious. We're going to try something new. I have a big adventure coming, and I have a process, the itty bitty baby stepping to big hairy audacious goals process. It's a mouthful, but it's the process that I use to go do big, crazy, hairy things. And I'm about to start on an adventure very, very shortly. And so Michael and I are going to walk me through the process. We're going to go through it, and he's going to help me brainstorm it so you can see it unfold live, and you can see how little time it takes to set yourself up for massive probability of success in whatever it is that you want to do.
Fantastic.
You ready?
See you next week, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. And that would be 3 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful and successful 2023. And we'll keep chipping away at the way to make your dreams happen.